In 1930, there were 6 million farms in America. Today, that number has plummeted to 1.8 million. And now 85% of the beef in America is controlled by just 4 companies. That means fewer farmers have to produce more food, thus incentivizing them to produce a high quantity of food instead of high quality food. Plus, if something goes wrong, the 98% of us that don't grow food are at risk of starving. Yikes, that's dark. Let's go darker. A few very wealthy companies have control over all the food. And if North Korea has taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. The bottom line is this: you can't wait until hits the fan to figure out what your family's going to eat, but all hope is not lost. Here's the plan. It's called From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that's as easy to use as Airbnb. From the Farm gives you fresher, higher quality foods, strengthens communities, and helps small farmers not only survive, but thrive. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
What's up, everybody? It's been a while since we've had a guest or a show, and so I'm super excited to be here today. My guest today is Dr. Rich Brazil. He's a veterinarian from California. Their family have been in the cattle business for a long time. I met Rich through his daughter, Keely, who's been incredible in the world of journalism and telling the story of the small family farms and ranches throughout the country that have been, being attacked. And one of those big stories was the Potter Valley Dam project. If you remember the Point Reyes issue in California, these ranches that have been under attack. Currently, it's the Potter Valley Dam issue. I got to meet Rich and one of his daughters, Grace. Keely couldn't make it. She just had her baby. So I got to meet Rich and his daughter, Grace, at the Lawfare announcement a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome to meet those guys, and met Rich for the first time. So I'm going to bring him on, introduce you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about the Point Reyes project, fight that they're pushing against. But most importantly, today I want to introduce you to Rich and what he's doing for ranchers to help with their operation. He also runs a tech company called Ranch Vision. So I'm going to learn more about that. You guys are going to learn some about that with us. So in the first little bit of this show, if you are a consumer, I encourage you to stay tuned in and listening so you can learn about the Potter Valley Dam project. And then the show will finish with probably some more technical stuff for the rancher side. We'd love to have you stick around as a consumer if you want. But anyway, without any more delay, I'm bringing Rich on here. Rich, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, AJ.
So glad to have you on. It was great to meet you and Grace. And of course, I've connected with Keely on Zoom. I think I even did a podcast. So if you go back to our podcasts on our YouTube channel, I think I did one with her, maybe a year or two ago. So yeah, awesome. And, surprise, sorry, I ended up going live on Facebook too. I know you don't mind. We're on YouTube and Facebook. If you're there listening, you can ask questions and they should show up here. So Dr. Brazil can answer them as we're going through this. But Rich, I decided to go live at least on Facebook so we could get, some folks answering questions they happen to stop by. So
yeah, that's great. Love questions, and thanks for the opportunity. It was great meeting you. Really great meeting. Just kind of other salt of the earth people from all over the country. Similar problems, different zip codes.
Yeah.
But we're definitely very kindred spirits, I think, in this whole situation. So really, really good meeting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into agriculture, if you've always been to agriculture, going to, school to be a veterinarian, and the things you've been up to.
Yeah. So I was raised in the San Joaquin Valley, Central Valley of California. My family's been in the dairy business for generations. My grandparents are Azorean Portuguese, and all they know is cows. So they immigrated, the turn of the 19th century, came over, started dairies in the San Joaquin Valley. I was raised on that dairy. My interest, after graduating high school, I went to UC Davis, studied agricultural science and management, emphasis on animal science. And then I went to vet school. But my interest always, some people go to vet school because they love animals, and I do care for animals, but my interest was always the producer. I really enjoy coming alongside the producer to help them make a living. That's kind of what they're doing, to feed their families. And I love being a part of that. So that was always my quest. I went to UC Davis. I was there for 3 years. I then did a year abroad in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, studying agriculture there, studying, Australian agriculture. And again, my quest was always to try to understand ranch businesses to help make them profitable. And then, went to vet school. My wife, I met my wife in vet school. She's a veterinarian also. And after that, I graduated in 1988 and moved up to this place called Potter Valley in Northern California, kind of remote Northern California. Lots of beef cattle, horses, sheep, pigs, goats, enjoy it all. And I've been doing that since 1988, so like 38 years. And then, I continued on because I wanted to help my producers. I started to help them by ranch management consulting. So I've done that since the early 90s as well. And all of that led to this program, which is Ranch Vision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you still have an operation now, running any livestock? What does that look like today for you guys?
Yeah, we have a few sheep and a few cattle, but not a lot. I have them on clients of mine, where I trade them work for keeping my cattle or keeping my sheep. But I'm still in practice, still in large animal practice. It's just, as you guys know, there's a shortage of large animal veterinarians, and it's tough for me to get away from. It's tough for me to say no when my clients call me, even though I'm trying to back away a little bit because we're doing some other things and want to enjoy the grandkids a little bit more and stuff. So
yeah, and when you have a servant heart and it's hard for them to find somebody and they've had your number forever, how do you say no?
How do you say no when somebody's got a calf stuck or their horse went through the fence? Oh no, I'd rather not right now.
Yeah. I remember seeing a story a few months ago where a vet was looking to give his entire operation away because he could not find anybody. And he's like, well, let me help somebody, one of the very few that are still going to school for this. Let me help them get started strong. And he interviewed a bunch of people but gave his whole practice away because he couldn't find anybody. Yeah.
I can relate to that. I spoke at the vet school last year with the large animal interest people. I spoke with the dean, who's a former classmate of mine. And basically, at UC Davis right now, there's about 150 students, and maybe 5 of them are interested in large animal practice. And of those 5, maybe half of those came from the city and they ended up in vet school and they thought a cow was cute or something, and but not a lot of real world experience. So yeah, I've been trying to just give my practice away as well, and would mentor somebody if I could find someone. So if anybody knows anybody,
Yeah, wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about where we met there in DC for this lawfare announcement, and specifically about what's going on in Potter Valley. Let me play this video real quick that the USDA put out from when you guys were out there.
I'm the chairman of Save the Potter Valley Project, a dam structure in Northern California. There's 2 dams that provide water for more than 600,000 people in 5 different counties. Those dams are looking to be removed, and that's going to severely impact the farms, the homes, the ranches, the schools, the communities in our area. I think Gavin Newsom is the driving force. I believe this is all happening because of him. Leave us alone. why are you taking our water? Why are you destroying our homes and our farms and our ranches? We pay our taxes. We just want to work. We want to be left alone. We are trying to feed America. Until the Trump administration was voted in, we had no hope. Secretary Rollins and her leadership has just been so phenomenal to bring this situation to the forefront, to give it exposure, to bring others into place that can help us to try to stop this injustice. Thank you, Secretary Rollins. We are so very, very thankful for what you're doing for America.
Man, that was quite an event, wasn't it? I mean, the just all of the people in the room that were represented, like you said, from all over the country, dealing with, you know, all their different sort of challenges and issues. One thing I thought specifically about the meeting that was important and special was that it was opened with a prayer, and that's normal. Like that, you know, Rollins cabinet, they're constantly praying before they have these meetings and decision making and so forth. And that's our friend Shad sitting next to Grace, your daughter there. But anyway, so super awesome. So tell us more about the Potter Valley issue and what's the consequence if they succeed in what they're trying to do. I mean, it's common sense. Yeah. It feels like, but
yeah, no, it very much is. You know, this whole area has depended upon that water since 1908. Without that water, this is an intrinsically dry area. So for generations, the farms and ranches in this area have developed around and are dependent upon that water. So the plan is to basically pull the plug on that. Now they have what they call some kind of a solution, but it's an impractical solution. And all this solution, you know, so-called solution, is going to be worked out after they rip out the dams. And so it really is a bad idea. And so for all of us who live here, you know, these farms are going to, be destroyed. Domestic wells are going to go dry. People, their homes, and so their property values are going to collapse. It's absolute existential threat for this whole area. And it's not just, it starts in Potter Valley. So we're just a little mountain valley, but we're kind of the headwaters for this water flow. And it's a bit of an interesting thing. I can maybe explain it real quick, but basically, you have two river systems. One is the Eel River system that's running north. It's a massive water system. There's over 8 million acre feet per year going through that system, which is enough. It's a massive amount of water. It's enough to fill a swimming pool for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And virtually 100% of that is going out into the ocean. It's just flowing out to the ocean without being tapped whatsoever for human use. The only part that is this little fragment, less than 0.5%, which where the Eel system comes in proximity to the Russian River system. They're only separated about a mile at Potter Valley. And so in 1905, this guy named Van Arsdale, looking at the map, early days of hydroelectricity, said, hey, the Eel system is 500 feet above the Russian River system. If we simply drilled a tunnel, put a pipe through the mountain, and diverted a little bit of that water, we could have ongoing free hydroelectricity, and we'd get all this water into a dry area, much drier area. And so that's what they did. They did it by mule team. One team starting on one side of the ridge, the other starting on the other, and they met in the middle, and they were only a foot off when they came to the middle of the mountain. Unbelievable what they did. Yeah. And so with simply one pipe and then a small dam right there at the, on the Eel River on the other side, at the right by where the pipe comes through, the tunnel comes through, to make a bit of a reservoir so that there's a pool of water to go into the pipe. They created this program. What happens is we're a Mediterranean climate where we get all of our rain at once. So we get all of our rain during the wintertime from October to April, and a lot of rain. But then after that, we get no rain. We get no rain from, after April to October. And so it's either flood or it's drought. And so they recognized pretty early on, hey, there's no water coming through later summer, fall. And so in order to do that, we need to build another dam upstream to hold some of that water, to then slowly release that water to maintain the hydroelectricity throughout the year. So they completed that in 1922. So the whole project has been completed since 1922. And that water, again, we're at the headwater, so we get the beginning. So the irrigation, the farms, the ranches, hay, cattle, sheep, everything is dependent on that water. But it goes all the way down through the Russian River drainage out into the ocean at Bodega Bay, and it now serves more than 600,000 people, as much as 750,000 people are served by that water, are dependent upon that water. So what the plan is to remove those dams, and then they're talking about it, and it's so silly because right now it's a gravity feed system. You don't have to do anything. You got two walls and a pipe, and it works. And it's been turning for 100 years and producing electricity. Yeah. And so they're going to take out those two dams, the two walls, and then they would take out, because now they need to pump up the water up into the pipe. So you got to have power to pump the water into the pipe. They pull the hydroelectric plant at the bottom out, so you would get no electricity. And you can only do that during the wintertime. Well, we don't need more water during the wintertime. We're in flood stage already during the wintertime. So we can have access to the water only during the wintertime, not during the dry months. That doesn't do us any good. That's like, telling a drowning man, hey, you can drink all the water you want. But then saying to the guy drying of thirst, you can't have a sip. Yeah. So that's where they're leaving us. And that's the situation. And it's perpetrated, like I said there, the driving force is Gavin Newsom. Yeah. And he might say, oh, no, it's just a private company decision. No, he specifically says, and your listeners can look it up, in a January 2024 AP article, he specifically references these two dams 2 years ago, right? References these two dams, says, I'm going to get those taken out so that we can have a free river. It'll be the longest free river in California, which basically means every other river in the state of California we use to some degree, which only makes sense. We're going to make sure we use 0% of this whole river system. So he promises that, and he links it to his presidential bid. He's looking for the support from the environmental wing of his party for the nomination for president. And so we are politically expendable towards that purpose. He will do this to the people of his state so that he can get a few more votes in his presidential run. And that's what the whole thing that's driving this.
Man. Thanks for the summary on that. And isn't it true also that, the water, of course, when you're fighting wildfires, I fought wildfires when I was younger. We had bucket drops coming from helicopters that came from the nearest water source. And it was always better if that was closer than further away, for many reasons. Obviously, you're fighting an active fire, and also, the flight times available on the aircraft that are supporting the fire. If they've got to go further away, that's reduced. So, so what's the history of that place for fighting wildfires?
Yeah. So this is one of the most heavily impacted places for wildfires on the face of the planet. In the last 8 years, we have had 2 of the 3 largest wildfires in California history. One over 500,000 acres, the other over 1 million acres, just in the last few years. Both of those fires were put out by water from that's been stored by these dams. Okay, so the first dam, which is Scott Dam, Lake Pillsbury, sits in the middle of the Mendocino National Forest. It was completely essential in putting out that last 1 million acre fire and most of these other fires. That's going to be eliminated. It'll no longer be there. Also, it provides water because downstream from us, a few miles, is Lake Mendocino. That's the second major wildfire mitigation source in our area. Well, the diversion water provides 70% of the water to fill that lake. And so it's estimated that the lake will go dry during fire season 5 to 6 out of every 10 years. So 5 to 6 out of every 10 years, we will have neither of these essential water sources.
Wow.
We're in an area where our fire risk is so great that we can no longer purchase private fire insurance. And
Wow.
now you're going to take away the water, which takes away the irrigation, which is part of our protection,
Yeah.
and leaves us with no water to fight the fires. So it is simply, it's an assault. This is an assault on the people of this area.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess it's a good thing that your family's on top of it, and you've made it a family affair too. That's great.
Yeah, very blessed by Keely, because
Yep.
she's been the kind of the voice crying in the wilderness, and people have seen this. The USDA has seen it. It's got their attention. All of our success in this has been from what she's done, really, ultimately. If the Trump administration hadn't gotten in, we would not have a prayer.
Yep.
But the
Yep.
tremendous, and I am a fan of Secretary Rollins. I have tremendous respect and admiration for what she's doing, because she doesn't have to do it, right?
Yeah.
She is in a position of power, and your character and your integrity are shown when you're given power. And what is she doing? She is listening to the voices of the people that aren't heard. She is providing protection and a voice for for those who don't otherwise have a voice. So
Right.
Tremendous respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the screen I was just sharing with y'all is Keely's website where she does her journalism. So go there. Lots of great articles. I mean, I don't know how she does it all, because it's not just the Potter Valley. She's got a lot that she's keeping track on, and somebody that I definitely trust to do the right research and journalism so that we can, know what we're talking about and what we're sharing with others. So check that out at AmericanUnwon.com. So awesome.
Yeah, Keely's, and I look at those people around the table, virtually almost all of them, she started,
Yeah.
the Martins, the Kings, the Henrys, she was, and our issue as well. She was just one of the first people talking about this. And, she does this for pretty much for free. She does this as a service because she loves this country. She loves the people who work for a living. And so she spends a lot of time doing it. Yeah. AmericaUnwon.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, if you guys are, if this kind of information is of value to you and you want to stay connected and updated, go to AmericanUnwon.com. You can subscribe to help her out, because she's doing it. You can go read the articles, but if you subscribe, it'll definitely give her what she needs to keep doing that. So, and you're right, man, that's really, really quite incredible to think about, because having, followed Keely for so long, so many of the folks around that table, she kind of helped put the packages together so that the right people could see what was actually happening. I mean, I got a laundry list I'd love to send her, but I know she's busy. So
no, she loves doing that, and
Yeah.
for her, it's very, very gratifying. I mean, these last couple months have been tremendously gratifying to say, you know what, I am doing a difference in my little corner of the world. You can help, you can make a difference. And it's been very gratifying, I know, for her.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk about what you do now with to serve the farmers and ranchers. You've spent so much of your life's history working with livestock, working in agriculture, and then you go to school to become a veterinarian. Then you become a consultant, and then you put together, software technology very similar to not in function to From the Farm, but your lessons learned have led to, hey, we can make this way easier for farmers and ranchers that for so long it's just been, I mean, most of my family, I've seen them keep track on notepads and stuff like that, so you've added technology to it. So talk to us about Ranch Vision, why you built it. What was the need that you helped solve with that, and how it works?
Yeah, so as I began consulting with my producers, I recognized that I really could not give confident advice. I'm telling these people how to run their lives, basically, right? I want to make sure that's good advice.
Yep.
I couldn't confidently do that without seeing the whole big picture. And typically, people do not see the whole big picture. They look at one myopic aspect of it. Okay. Well, if you're not seeing the big picture, you can very easily be making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that led me to develop this program. It started as a spreadsheet program that grew. But I attended the Ranching for Profits school way back early on, like 1991. Stan Parsons, who started that. And through that, and again, my training, because this has always been my interest, as I was in agriculture and trying to transfer that to my producers, how to make a living, how to understand this rightly. And so that was very helpful, just the concept of enterprise analysis that they brought forward, that you need to break your ranch business into its individual profit components and analyze them individually. Because if you aren't doing that and you're just kind of combining them all, you could very easily be making money in one area and then losing it, in two or three others. And so it's very important to separate those out. And so also, one of the things that's difficult about ranch businesses, especially grazing livestock operations, is you have these population dynamics. You have these growing animal herds that are animals are being born, animals are dying, they're getting pregnant or not getting pregnant at certain rates. There's a lot of different variables. And another thing is that every ranch business is unique. What works on one place isn't necessarily going to work on another place. So you really need to specifically see the situation for that unique producer, the whole big picture. Also, you need to be looking forward, not backward, because, and that's, I guess, how I would fault typical and really all other software systems are just simply like your relatives use, right? A notebook. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a computer can be a fancier notebook. Okay. Yeah. And that's okay, but it's always looking backwards. It's always saying, well, what did I do? And that's of some value. But the real important question is, what do I do now? And how do, going forward? Because what happened before is different than where I'm at right now. And you look at you look at inflation over the last few years, how that has changed so much. You look at the cattle market from a year ago, that has changed tremendously. You need to be able to see forward. And you need to be able to break the business down. You need to be able to see the entire picture. And then you need to be able to manipulate it to make a new plan that's maximally profitable for your unique situation. And that's what the program does. That's simply what it does. So it allows you to make better decisions, which allows you to be profitable because you can see the whole picture, and then you can manipulate that in your own unique situation with your unique variables to come up with a plan. I'm a simple guy. I know most of my producers, they're not the computer nerds of the world, right?
Yep.
Wanting to make this simple, the inputs have to be simple. So, most of what we ask is stuff that almost all of what we ask is stuff that they should know or should have a very easy time finding. And we also provide helps there,
Yeah.
So we're looking at averages. We're looking at, okay, how many animals do you have now? And what are your expectations for the future? So it doesn't require any individual animal record keeping. And, what we ask, producers should be able to go through that in a couple hours max. And have their information in. Once they have their information in, it says, okay, if what you say is true, this is what's going to happen from every aspect of your ranch business for the next 5 years, year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then it's interactive. You can say, well, okay, I see this as I'm doing. If I do this, if what I say is true, I'm going to lose money doing that. Why do I want to do that? What if I don't do that? This over here is more promising. And how can I make it better? And how can I grow it? And how can I use my grass most maximally efficiently to make the most in my unique situation, which is different than the guy across the road, across the state, or whatever. So that's kind of what the tool does.
Man. And so, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask, like, how much of the thought in building it was around making it simple to use, because first of all, the job they're doing as it is requires so much.
Yeah.
And most have off-farm jobs. So they've got their off-farm job and their farming job. And now it's like, how many more things can you put on a person before they're like, I don't have time to do any of that?
Yeah. No, central focus. It's got to be straightforward and easy. You know, it's got to be simple stuff that they know. And like I say, so what we're asking is straightforward stuff. How many cows do you have? How many bulls do you have? What's your expected death loss, annual death loss in your, this class of animal, that class of animal? When do you plan to sell your weaned calves? What do you expect them to weigh? What do you expect the prices to be? And all this, you can play with it. You can say, well, I think this, and it'll show you, okay, what's going to happen. What if it's that? Well, that's what's going to happen. And so, but straight, we ask initially just some basic questions, hey, where are you located? What species do you want to look at? Because, ultimately a rancher is a grass farmer. You have this forage resource that you're trying to convert to something that you can sell. And so you have different options, and different cattle enterprises are options, but also different sheep enterprises could be options. Different goat enterprises could be options. So we allow them to look at, as many as 6 different cattle enterprises and 6 different sheep enterprises and 6 different goat enterprises if they want, as well as an unlimited number of other non-grazing enterprises. It incorporates all of that into the big picture moving forward. So we ask you simple questions. What species do you want to consider? And they don't, these are things that they don't necessarily have to have. These are things they, I could do this. Let me take a look at doing that. Okay. And I could buy them for this, and I could do that with them, and I would expect this. Oh, wow, that could really work in my situation. Or nope, that's something I don't want to do. I don't want to find out 5 years from now that was a dumb idea, And so, so we ask them some basic questions, and from, first couple input panels, now we know the structure of your ranch. If you said, I don't want to look at sheep, you'll never have to deal with sheep stuff ever again. Right. And if you say, I only want to look at cow-calf, enterprises, well, you're only going to be dealing with cow-calf. But if you want to look at different stocker enterprises, that's open to you. And from there on, you just kind of fill in your stuff. And there's, like I say, there's helps along the way. We provide, the reason we ask at the beginning where you're located, because then we can, when you get to like, what's the purchase price of bulls or cows, or, my sales prices on my calves or whatever, we will link you to the USDA market report for your area. USDA, if you're in United States, we do this market links for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa as well.
Wow.
For cattle, for sheep, for goats, for wool, mohair, we try to make it easy. Okay, what is the going price? Well, last, Monday, the nearest major market in my area, in say Bozeman, Montana, or whatever it might be, this is what cattle are going for this class, that class, and the other. Okay, this is probably a pretty accurate number here that I can put in.
Awesome.
So kind of you just walk down, and then it just says, okay, here it is, next 5 years, all these different aspects of your ranch business, your herd numbers, your sales, your purchases, your gross margins, your grazing demand. So it's automatically measuring how much forage those animals are going to eat, which, like I said, is important because that's what you're dealing with. That's your resource. And then another real important one is enterprise efficiency. How much return, how much money per unit of grass consumed? And now you can compare apples to apples, whether you're using it in a cow-calf enterprise or a stocker enterprise or, some sheep or goat enterprise. How much return, how many dollars per unit of grass, same unit, okay? And now you can say, okay, this one is way better than this one. I'm losing money. I didn't realize that because there's so many factors. And that's, producers are kind of, they're and it's not their fault because it's complicated, right? And I've always did the same thing, but you're operating blind. It's like driving your car blindfolded because you just don't know. You're doing the best, you're working hard, you're trying to make, good decisions based on what, other people have done, based on the advice you got at the sales yard or on some podcast or whatever, but you don't really know. And you're hoping at the end of the year there's some money left. Well, that's, you want to be able to see. So that's why we called it ranch vision, because you can see up to 5 years into the future and you go, oh, well, that's a stupid thing. I'm not going to do that. Well, what about this? Let me look into this. And so, I like to say, that it takes, I think you're never going to reproduce that human element. There's always going to be the necessity for human judgment, for human creativity, for human experience. Okay. But also computers can crunch numbers instantly. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the computer crunches the numbers, and then it allows you to say, okay, well, what if I could try this? I know I couldn't do that, but I could try this. How would that look? And so you can apply your creativity, your judgment to look at different ideas to see what's going to work out best in your situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so they're no longer just throwing stuff against the wall, hoping it sticks. They have real numbers and data to tell them like, yeah, this is worth the investment in that new enterprise or expanding that enterprise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. What's some of from the clients you've worked with in the past, what are some of the biggest transformations that you guys have helped, a ranch accomplish?
Yeah. I almost hate saying it sometimes because it sounds like too good to be true. But making better decisions, seeing things clearly can make a tremendous difference. So it's not uncommon at all to increase profitability by 50% or even double. We've had it as, even 10 times. We worked with a producer who was expecting a profit. We put in their numbers, right? Expecting a profit of $17,000 for the coming year. We were able to show them a path to make over $400,000. Not doing things differently, just making better decisions.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, and that's not typical,
Sure. But for that one family, that's literally the difference between keeping the ranch or losing it potentially.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very eye-opening. You go, oh my goodness. Wait a minute, I've been making all these mistakes all this time. And it's not, like I say, it's not by, all of a sudden you're weaning 900-pound calves and you got 100% conception rates. No, your same conception rates, your same, doing what you're doing, but making better decisions, doing more of the right thing and less of the wrong thing, because you can see.
Is there and this might be an impossible question, but is there a common between the people you work with, do you tend to find like the most common thing that they're all missing that might be, it's just in their blind spot that, man, that one thing just gains you some momentum and that your system helps with?
Yeah. There's a lot of variability, but there are some common threads that people, I think, forget of over time. One thing that is just like, loose money on the table, I think, for a lot of people, is that they forget just the fundamentals of animal husbandry a little bit. They forget like hybrid vigor, right? Hybrid vigor is a significant thing. And for the last 25, 30 years, black cattle have sold. So there's, a lot of my producers, were using Angus bulls on Angus cows for decades after decade. Well, that's great. Black sells. A lot of, Angus cattle have a lot of positives, but there's other ways to get black cattle. There's other ways to maintain those Angus positives, but also have hybrid vigor. So, simply changing your bull breed a little bit, and looking at what that might do for you on a lot of, if you're a seed stock producer, that might not be something you can do. Okay. Here again, experience in your situation, right? But if you're a commercial cattle producer, nobody cares if your cattle are registered Angus or straight Angus, right? They can be cross, and there's other ways to get black cattle. So Hereford cross cattle, black baldy cattle can be excellent cattle. Galvey, Limousin, black Simmental, you can add cross, a cross in your breeding, to produce a big difference. And that's just a simple one. Another one that people need to look at, a lot of people is, a lot of people put up hay, and don't do it as efficiently as they could. It's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of extra capital. And you could do this with the program, instantly. And all these questions you can look at like within 2 or 3 minutes, really. But
Yeah.
like, what if I didn't put up hay? And so I save all that, the costs and the labor and things I had associated with that. What if I just buy my hay at the market rate, and now I've opened up further forage for grazing? How could I use that more efficiently? Can that be better for maybe even simplify my life? You know, I know one guy was going to make a shirt, you know, more cattle, less hay, you know, or something like that. Less hay,
Yeah.
more cattle. I mean, that's a pretty good slogan, right? And so, no, that's another thing to look at.
Are you saying, just so I understand, are you saying the potential that taking that ground for hay production out of hay production and using it for pasture ground instead,
Yeah.
and then buying the forage,
Yeah.
actually could save them money or make them money because that
Yeah.
ground for meat, for protein production is worth more than what they're saving by growing their own hay?
Yeah, in a lot of situations, you know, not every situation.
Sure.
Again, everybody
Yeah.
is unique, right? But
Yeah.
you got your numbers, and that's something that they ought to look at because, you know, some people put up hay pretty efficiently, and they
Mhm.
might be doing it more efficiently than you.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
paying a premium because you think you're saving money because you're not paying for it. Well, you are paying for it, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the program incorporates all these non-cash costs and everything as well, all opportunity costs, all non-cash costs. So even though you're not paying for that hay, there's a value to that hay because you could have sold it, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, so so that's another, you know, I think a big one for people to look at. There's a lot of different things, and again, every place is unique. You know, I know RFK, and we're looking to make a reel here on this because he was saying, hey, people need to keep more cattle, you know, keep more cows.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he's got a big point, but, you know, it's easier said than done because it's like, well, number one, do I have the grass for more cows?
Yeah.
You know, and if I have the grass, that's one thing, but maybe I need to acquire the grass. And so, you know, right now in my situation with my numbers, does it make sense for me to grow my cow herd? Okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to grow it, I got two different options. I can either go all at once, which is to buy a bunch of cows,
Mhm.
maybe take out a loan, and do that. Or I can go gradual and just maybe, but then I got two choices. Either I save more breeding replacements or I buy breeding replacements.
Right.
Well, the program will tell you which is more efficient for you, which is more cost effective for you. One of the reports is it tells you the cost for you and in your operation to produce a 2-month bred female. All costs incorporated. So, you know, all your cash costs, all your non-cash costs, all your opportunity costs, you know, adjustments for infertility, because not all those heifers you breed get pregnant, adjustments for death loss, incorporating bull costs, everything. So it tells you exactly what it's costing you, you know, for you to raise a 2-month bred female. And then you might say, okay, well, it cost me $3,213 to raise one, but I can, you know, I can buy them for $3,500 or, you know, whatever that number might be. In my situation, it's more profitable for me to raise them than to buy them. Another situation, if these are comparable females, it's more profitable to buy them. So you can, you know, decide whether gradual or all at once, whether by keeping replacements or by purchasing replacements, whether if you have the grass available, or what if I were to expand the grass? I need to further develop my grass resource. That might be taking out a lease. Okay.
Yeah.
I could do it at this price, or maybe purchasing property. I could do this, but I'm going to have a mortgage and I'm going to have this interest rate, and all of this is incorporated into the plan. Or you might say, you know, I'm going to improve my grazing management. And that's another way, right? Either put in an intensive grazing management plan. And I think in my situation, talking to my farm advisor and, you know, whatever, I think I could improve the carrying capacity by 20% or whatever in my situation. But it's going to cost me this much for fencing, or maybe I'm going to do it by virtual fencing. Okay. How much, you know, and you can cost that out. Maybe I'm going to have to take out a loan. You know, you put in your information and then it says, okay, this is how it will work out if what you say is true. And you can make rational decisions to increase your cow herd or do any of these other things.
Awesome. What's the size of operation that you guys served? Does that vary, or is there like a certain size in production before ranch vision makes sense? Like
Yeah.
small homesteads all the way up to your big,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. So, you know, I'm a small small ranch vet, right? And
Yep.
stuff. I don't want to do something that's going to exclude the small people, right?
Mhm.
And so what we created was a tiered pricing system. So it ends up, we have a price for 50 head or less,
Yep.
and then the next one like 100 head, or maybe I think the next one is maybe 200, and then eventually to unlimited size.
Yeah.
It's on a kind of per head basis, and so because the program knows how many cattle you got. You're
Yeah.
putting in your numbers. We know that, so we can say, okay, small guy, you can use it for $250 a year.
Yeah.
Big guy, unlimited, it's going to be, what, $2,100 or $2,300 per year. But all of that's kind of coming out to, like the cost of a deworming. We're talking a couple dollars per head per year. So
Nice.
that's kind of, we want to keep it affordable for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Do you, is it mostly ruminants that you're working with, or do you, hogs and poultry? What's that like?
Yeah. So, like I say, one of the things that's unique about ranch business is that they're accumulation of enterprises, right? Different
Yep.
profit centers. Typically, they're going to have one or more grazing enterprises, but they might have other non-grazing enterprises like pigs or chicken or hay or crops or honeybees or wedding venue or 1,001 other things. It allows you to look at all of those.
Wow. Okay.
It allows you to look at all of those and incorporate all those moving forward in my cash flow situation, my profit and loss situation. It produces a whole bunch of stuff, probably more than most people will ever want,
Yeah.
but it produces all the things like a lender would want to see, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Go and it's going to produce, all these different measures that the Farm Financial Services Council said this is what lenders should look at, rate of return on equity, rate of return on assets, operating expense ratio, all these different things. It'll produce all of that for you, and which is very good if you're, needing to take out a loan. You can take that and say, here's where I'm at. This is how much profit I'm going to make. Here are all these ratios moving forward, and they can say, great, that's
Man.
I'm going to give you a lower interest rate.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, because I'm thinking about like the homesteading movement, or the small acreage, movement, where people are getting out of the city, starting their own, homestead. Many of them want to try to find a way to make that property, probably at least cover its own overhead so they can keep it in their family. And if they've got the land, they're turning to, food enterprises to do that, whether it's a garden or, chicken is massively on the rise. What's great about chicken is you can process up to 1,000 and sell them before you have to go into a certified facility. I don't think it's even USDA. It's just, you have to have a building that gets approved. Then they can go up to 20,000. So the barrier to entry in chicken is low. And also with the alpha gal syndrome on the rise, people becoming, getting bit by these Lone Star ticks, I think is the one that carries it. They're getting bit by the tick. They're getting this alpha gal syndrome, makes them allergic to red meat. So their only option is like chicken and fish. And so I'm hearing from folks, especially in the East, where this is, a really fast growing problem, that the demand for chicken is skyrocketing. So I'm just thinking from the aspect of those who are getting into it, because we need them. We've lost so many producers. We need those folks to get in, but we also need them to stick around. We don't want them to come in, make the same mistakes that the generations before them have done, and then, in like what you're doing, helped figure out.
Yeah.
Let's avoid that so that you're not repeating that, and we can keep you around. I mean, that's, like from the farm, that's what we're trying to do. Let's make sure that when you get into it, you're not wasting thousands of dollars on the wrong packaging because you didn't know you're just starting. Right. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah. People talk about sustainability, but to be sustainable, you got to be profitable.
Yep.
You're not going to be in it if you're not profitable.
Right.
And so that's really important to look at. It allows you to do that. And it'll, one of the things I like about it, it allows you to do that without having anything. You can say, I might want to do this, but is this going to work? And so you can say, well, here is kind of the sandbox to test it out on. And then you can say, hey, that's a great idea. Or actually this, this is promising, this part isn't, but I can figure out a way to make this work, before you get in and, and it's kind of too late, you're stuck. So yeah, it's gotta be profitable. And, we kind of teach the basics in it, by the way. It's also used by, universities for teaching ranch business management.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So we kind of have a curriculum with it and all, but the help system is there. It explains it to you. Ranching 101, enterprise analysis. And we kind of walk you through these little modules to help you get your mind around ranch businesses. They're not real long. We try to, distill it down pretty good. These are all fairly, pretty simple, straightforward subjects.
Yep.
Like the first one, I kind of picture ranch businesses, especially grazing livestock operations. It's kind of like, the three ends of a triangle, right? You need to master all three of them. And the animal management, there's the pasture management, and then there's the business management. And the business management tends to be the one that people are weakest on. Mm-hmm. But so this kind of focuses on the business side, helping you understand the business side. Because if you don't understand that, you're probably going to fail. But it's not that complicated. And again, it kind of walks you through that to help you, do what you're trying to do.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing, both what you guys are working on in Potter Valley and then what you guys have created at Ranch Vision. How can people get a hold of you for Ranch Vision to, get a demo or to get in contact so they can learn more?
Yeah. So our website, is just ranchvision.io.
Okay.
ranchvision.io. You can go there and you can schedule a demo and contact us through that. And happy to show it to you. And one of the things we do, because we really see this as a community, is we meet twice a month with all our producers who want to. We have once a month onboardings for the new producers. Everybody's invited to that. We go through, the questions of entering your information, but also if there's time, we go through, specific things that these producers are wanting to look at. Hey, I want to look at a direct-to-consumer operation. I want to work with, farm to table, right?
Yeah.
From the farm. From the farm. Right? Yeah. I want to work with that. How can I make that work? And then we have a second one, which, during the month that's more advanced a little bit, not necessarily advanced, but it's not just the entry one. Everybody can come and they can say, I'm trying to consider this. I'm thinking about using this vaccine on my first calf heifers. It'll cut my calf mortality rate by this amount, but it's going to cost this much. How would I look at this with Ranch Vision? I'm thinking about putting in virtual fencing. It's going to cost so much for my base stations and so much for my collars, but I think I could increase my carrying capacity by 15% in my situation. How can I look at that? How can I make it more cost effective? I'm right now I'm leasing a lot of steers. I'm renting out my ground for leasing. Is that cost effective for me compared to the other ways I'm doing it? We could look at anything. So try to make community, because I think there's less and less of that. There's and so trying to just keep that. People can come with their questions and everybody learns from one another. And
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we have many shared visions at with what you guys are doing, what we're doing in terms of, how the communities come together, how we can serve the producers more to make sure that they succeed. So I love it. Well, awesome. Yeah. So if you didn't get that, it's ranchvision.io. So go to that website and there's an easy way to schedule a demo and join those guys. Rich, I appreciate you. Yeah, go ahead.
And likewise, I've been telling my people about, from the farm as well. Because you and I talked last week, just I think I see a lot of positives, a lot of potential in what you're doing to make life easier for producers to do these things, because they're already busy people, right? But your situation makes it easier for them to capitalize on, I think, lost dollars that's going to the middleman that they could receive to keep their farm businesses healthy. So really appreciate what you got going on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Just like you, it's all about trying to keep more of those dollars into their pocket and helping them make the right decisions. And what you guys do, we could never do. And so I think as producers kind of get plugged into these different tools that are proven, then we can really keep our producers around so we don't have any major issues in America. Keep our dams to fight the wildfires and provide the water for growing food. Keep our ranchers on the land and all of the things. So, well,
yes,
Rich, I appreciate you. You're a good man. You can tell a lot about people by their offspring and how they are. And I've been able to meet 2 of your family now and just got an incredible group. How many kids you have?
We have 8. My wife and I, we have 8 kids. Yep.
7 girls, right?
We got 6 girls and 2 boys.
6 girls and 2 boys, and you got a whole bunch of grandkids on the way now.
We do. And all of a sudden the dam's breaking. They're just coming, like crazy.
Amazing.
So,
amazing.
Good times.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Rich. I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you, AJ.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Likewise. We'll see ya.
In 1930, there were 6 million farms in America. Today, that number has plummeted to 1.8 million. And now 85% of the beef in America is controlled by just 4 companies. That means fewer farmers have to produce more food, thus incentivizing them to produce a high quantity of food instead of high quality food. Plus, if something goes wrong, the 98% of us that don't grow food are at risk of starving. Yikes, that's dark. Let's go darker. A few very wealthy companies have control over all the food. And if North Korea has taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. The bottom line is this: you can't wait until hits the fan to figure out what your family's going to eat, but all hope is not lost. Here's the plan. It's called From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that's as easy to use as Airbnb. From the Farm gives you fresher, higher quality foods, strengthens communities, and helps small farmers not only survive, but thrive. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.